Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us today. I'm very pleased to have with us Gonzalo de la Guardia, who is a specialist in health insurance, particularly other forms of insurance too, but health insurance especially for expatriates who are living in Panama. And we have asked Gonzalo to join us today to give us a little bit of a description of what the situation is with regard to health insurance, what you can get covered, and so forth. Gonzalo, I know that you were educated at the University of Texas.
Yes, sir.
Although you're a Panamanian, born and bred, exactly.
Yes.
So you've had a lot of experience in the U.S., and you got another degree at the London School of Economics in London, so
Yes.
you're familiar with Britain and Europe. You've had quite an experience. What brought you into insurance here in Panama, and when did that happen?
Well, my family has been in the insurance business for more than 100 years now. Yeah, my grandfather brought a couple of insurance companies to Panama in the 1910. And then my father was also in the insurance business, and 5 of his 11 kids are in the insurance business. So, but I started insurance when I came back from London in 1976, and almost 40 years ago, Bob.
Yeah.
Long time.
Yes.
And I started with likes of the Mutual of Omaha, the US. And I've been in the insurance business ever since for almost 40 years now.
My gosh,
Yeah.
you don't look anywhere near old enough for that, Gonzalo. Well, I've got some questions that people have asked us, and I wanted to share with you so you can give some answers, if you would. Do you represent one insurance company or more than one?
No, but I represent several insurance companies. It's important to have alternatives for your customers. But basically I represent international health insurance companies because most of my customers are expats. They come from the US, Canada, or Europe. And I always want to give them the alternative, the backup of being able to get Medicare coverage back home. So my policies have to cover all over the world. And that's what I specialize in. With few good, well-known companies, because this, you go to a hospital in Belgium, and you want to show a ID card that they will recognize. So
That's true.
yeah, very important.
That's good. Well, the insurance policies you represent, do they just cover expenses here? Obviously, not just here in Panama. Do they also cover expenses outside of Panama and the U.S. or Canada or Europe?
Yes, the policies I represent are international.
Okay.
They are designed for people who, they live in Panama, but they travel, to other countries. So these policies are worldwide coverage. The only limitation of these international policies is the U.S. Limitations in the sense that they will cover you within a network of hospitals, but usually pretty good networks, like 500 top hospitals in the US, etc. But otherwise, they would cover you in Canada, Europe, anywhere in the world. And in Panama, at any private hospital.
Just out of interest, do you offer insurance for people who only want it in Panama?
No, but I can refer them to I prefer to do the things, I want total protection for my customers. And people say, no, I'm going to stay in Panama, and whatever happened to me. Once in a while, things can happen that your doctor will tell you, if I were you, I would go to such and such hospital in Texas, for example. And you want to have that backup. Believe me, I've been through that several times, yeah.
I can understand that completely.
Yeah.
Now, there's one question people frequently ask about pre-existing conditions and whether or not they're covered. And if they're not covered, is there a period of time after which they are covered? Basically, what's the situation with pre-existing conditions?
Well, pre-existing conditions, companies will always want to know about pre-existing conditions. Most of the pre-existing conditions, the person can be insured. So the person is insurable. What companies will, let me give you a metaphor. If you have a house with 10 rooms and one of the rooms is on fire, you might get the company to insure the other 9. But the one who is on fire, if you have a heart ailment and you declare that you have, 4 stents put 3 years ago, the company will say, we'll cover you the rest of the rooms, but not heart conditions. Usually they look at what has happened in the last 2 years and the last 5 years. Those are the most important things. If you have any pre-existing condition on those years, they will probably put a limitation, or they will put a permanent exclusion, or a reviewable exclusion after 2 years of being in the policy. But in my experience, out of hundreds of customers, probably they have turned down 5 people as uninsurable at all. But usually, if you work with the company, you send the medical records, etc. These international companies, their business is to insure people, not to tell them, go away. So unless there is a very specific, chronic ailment, usually they will insure people with pre-existing conditions with a limitation.
Well, let's take an example like diabetes, because that's one that does pop up some frequently. Is there different kinds of diabetes? Do they have different reactions?
Yes, there are. There is a diabetes 1, which is for people who are insulin dependent, people who inject insulin. Usually, most of the companies will consider that person uninsurable at all.
For everything?
At all, for everything. They will not issue a policy. If you have diabetes 2, they will request a questionnaire to see, if you are taking care of yourself. It's important. When you have an ailment and you take care of it, you can control it. So usually they will insure people with diabetes, but with an exclusion for things related directly to that condition. So they will cover the other 9 rooms, but not that one. So more or less, that's how it works.
Now, there are also the question of age limitations. When I first came to Panama, I think 65 was as old as you could be to get health insurance.
Yeah.
I know that's changed, at least I've heard that. What's the situation today?
Well, it's the good news. The companies are taking more and more people after. Usually, a couple of years ago, it was 65 was the age that would go young. Now it is possible to get insurance up to age 75 from different, several companies. So up to age 75, you have choices. Now there are 2 or 3 companies that insure people from 75 to 85. So up to 85, you can get insurance. Probably not as many options as younger people, but you still can get insurance.
Oh,
that's good news. That was not the case 10 years ago.
It certainly wasn't.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I'm amazed, but I'm delighted to hear it.
Yeah.
But good. All right. Okay. How would you compare the professional quality of the health care here compared to that's available in the United States, Canada, Europe, Asia, and other places?
My opinion, and of many people, healthcare in Panama is pretty good. Compared to private hospitals all over the world. In my case, I think that in my mind, I would, if I had a condition in Panama, I would probably stay here in Panama. But as I mentioned, once in a while, you have a condition that probably, let's say a condition that a doctor in the US does 10 operations a week of that specific condition. Maybe a doctor in Panama sees once a month that condition. So common sense will tell you, if I were you, go to somebody who's, does that frequently. So that would be the main difference, that I would prefer to go to a bigger institution, for example, the Jackson Memorial in Miami, that they see hundreds of different cases. But other than that, I would say, as a generalization, that medical care in Panama is fantastic, and patient care even better, because here you are a person, and the nurses know you, and the doctor comes and visits 2-3 times a day, because he has got 3 patients. In the US, probably the doctor has 20 patients, and he doesn't have the time to spend with you. So I would recommend very much staying in Panama for most of the things.
I know, I've had that same reaction from a lot of people.
Yeah.
They're really astonished at how caring people are here, and they really do focus on you as a person. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's one of the best reasons for being here.
Yeah.
And my attitude is, I'll stay here unless I have to go back for some very specific reason. So I understand that. What do you think, in your own experience, what are the problems? What is it people should understand when they come? Or Have there been some sort of difficulties or other problems that people have come up with regarding health care that you'd like to talk about?
Well, first thing is people should check what they have right now. Somebody's in the US, for example, most people have private insurance, but those policies usually will not cover them outside of the US. But they know about insurance and they know about deductibles, etc. So it's easier to deal with them, because what we are trying to do is to find similar coverage to what they used to have in the US. And in my experience, the international policies available in a market like in Panama are even better than the ones you can get in the US, and usually much cheaper than, and they will give you an option of going to any country in the world, including the US, for treatment. So there's a good probability of whoever comes to Panama can get as good or better coverage that they had before.
Well, do you have clients from nations like in Europe or in Canada which have national health services, which they may be used to and not particularly familiar with private insurance? Is this a little complicated to explain to them?
The complicated thing to explain to Canadians is that it costs money because they are accustomed to paying the taxes, so it doesn't come. But yeah, they do understand immediately what they're looking. And actually, some of them have mentioned to me that they get better service with the policy in Panama, because sometimes in Canada, because of the system, they have to wait 10 months for an operation. So here, with private insurance, you can go next day and have an operation. So it's got some advantages being in Panama. Huh?
Yes, indeed there are. Well, one hospital that gets a lot of attention here is Punta Pacifica Hospital, because it is an affiliate of Johns Hopkins Hospital, one of the finest in the world. And they are actively involved with the hospital here and its administration and its management. But in my experience, it indicates that there are a number of other hospitals here that are less expensive, that are very fine hospitals. I mean, would you agree with me? I go to national.
Of course, there are 4 or 5 top hospitals in Panama that I would have no. I would go to one of them. Usually, what you do is you will follow your doctor. If the doctor, operates in such and such hospital, you go to that hospital, because that's where he has his team of people, his nurses, etc. And you want him to work in comfort.
Yes,
for your benefit, Yeah.
And I know some of them are associated with more than one hospital.
Oh yeah,
3 hospitals. Do you ever have a problem where you can't use a particular doctor because he's not recognized by the
No,
health
I've never had
insurance?
a problem. No.
No, okay, that's good. How about the hospital in David? Have you ever?
Yeah, Hospital Chiriquí in David is a large institution with lots of specialists, and people in Boquete, for example, are very happy to have a nice hospitals within half an hour, 45 minutes of Boquete. I know a lot of the doctors over there, top, U.S. trained, and so you have very good services in Boquete. Now there might exactly like there might be some conditions in which your doctor in Chiriquí will say, listen, you better go to Panama to be treated because you gotta get better care over there. They have better machines or whatever. But for 95% of the things that can happen to you, not life-threatening, in Chiriquí Hospital, Chiriquí will be a perfect place to go.
Well, I can talk a bit about my own circumstances. Gonzalo happens to be my health insurance agent, so he knows that. He knows I've recently used it. But it gives you an example. And remember, of course, that everyone differs. And so my situation may be radically different from yours, but I guess give you two as an idea. I'm covered by a group called Worldwide Medical Insurance, which is represented by, among others, by Gonzalo. They provide me with coverage in Punta Pacifica Hospital, this top-notch hospital here in Panama City, at the one in David, on the western end of the country near Costa Rica, and then, if necessary, at other institutions here, if those are preferable for use, as happens sometimes. So I'm completely covered here. I'm also covered back in the United States. There are actually certain, as Gonzalo mentioned, there's a network. It's a very fine network of hospitals, some of them specializing in cancer, some of them specializing in cardiological problems. Of course, Johns Hopkins itself. So I feel very comfortable that I've got coverage in both ends of the trip, so to speak, from here to there. I've never used it in the U.S. I hope I don't have to. In any event, I have used it here. It's worked very, very well for me. I just had a cataract operation just a little over a week ago, as Gonzalo knows, and I did it here. It wasn't provided at Punta Pacifica Hospital. They didn't have the appropriate surgical room for it, so it was done at a special optical center. They did a wonderful job, and I'm extremely pleased with it. Now, my insurance policy is a $500 deductible. I have to co-pay 20% of the first $15,000. So I'm responsible for $3,500 up to that $15,000 limit. $500 the initial payment, and then $3,000 the 20%. After that, they cover everything 100% up to $2 million a year.
Like for eye number 2.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she points out, I have 2 cataracts, so I get the operation of the second eye in another week or so. I'm 70 years old. I pay once every 6 months, and my most recent payment, just a couple, 3 months ago, was averaged up to $330 a month. So I'm single, I'm 70, I don't have pre-existing conditions, but I am older, and I am covered both in my home nation, original home nation, and now my current home nation here at excellent institutions. I've used the insurance, and it has worked quite well. I'm perfectly pleased with it, and I get the whole thing for $330 a month, which I think most Americans would understand is not terribly expensive. In fact, pretty good. And I'm very pleased with the care I've received from doctors here. I've also been to a couple of the other hospitals here for minor things. Excellent, no problem whatsoever. So I'm very satisfied. But it gives you an idea. Now, your situation, you have to fill out all the forms and the questionnaires to determine what might be true for you. But I think there is a solution for pretty much everybody, one way or another here. And it's, people like Gonzalo have that sort of background that can find the right solution for you. It's great. So, Gonzalo, I want to thank you very much for being with us today. Gonzalo has just been kind enough to come and talk to us, but I'll leave his email address in the description below the video, so if anybody wants to ask him a question, they can. So thank you again.
My pleasure.
And thank you. Thank you for being with us.